Am I the only one that didn't know? How close we are to the brink of World War III. Opening scene. 2 wars, 2 regions on fire, and countless lives shattered. Today, we dive deep into the Russia-Ukraine war and the escalating conflict in the Middle East. What's the cost? How many lives have been lost? And will these 2 conflicts spiral into something far more dangerous? World War III? Stay tuned till the end and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more in-depth geopolitical analysis. It's 2024, and the world is watching in horror as these 2 devastating wars continue to ravage lives and economies. The scale of destruction is unprecedented, and the impact is felt globally. Let's start with the Russia-Ukraine war. This conflict has been raging for over 2.5 years now, with no end in sight. The initial invasion has spiraled into a prolonged and brutal war. Ukrainian forces have been resilient, showing remarkable courage and determination in the face of overwhelming odds. But the Russian military's relentless missile strikes have caused unimaginable destruction. Cities have been reduced to rubble, and the civilian population is caught in the crossfire. Over $300 billion has been spent on this war so far, draining resources and crippling economies, not just by Russia and Ukraine but also by international players supporting either side. The geopolitical ramifications are vast, with alliances being tested and new ones being formed. Over 15 million people have been displaced, creating one of the largest refugee crises in recent history, seeking refuge both within Europe and beyond. Families have been torn apart, and the humanitarian need is immense. In terms of human cost, more than 500,000 soldiers and civilians have lost their lives, a staggering number that continues to rise. With over 1 million injured, many of them severely. Hospitals are overwhelmed and medical supplies are running low. The winter season ahead is set to complicate matters even more. Harsh weather conditions will make combat operations more difficult and living conditions for civilians even more dire. International aid organizations are working tirelessly to provide relief, but the scale of the crisis is daunting. Diplomatic efforts continue, with peace talks being held regularly, but a resolution seems elusive. The stakes are high, and the path to peace is fraught with challenges. Economic sanctions and trade restrictions have further strained global markets, affecting everything from energy prices to food supplies. Around the world, people are calling for an end to the violence. Protests and solidarity movements have sprung up, demanding peace and justice. The impact on children has been particularly devastating. Schools have been destroyed, and education has been severely disrupted, affecting an entire generation. The environmental toll is also significant, with polluted rivers, destroyed forests, and long-term ecological damage that will take decades to repair. Technological warfare has added a new dimension to the conflict, with drones and cyber attacks playing a crucial role in modern combat. Global leaders continue to make statements and pass resolutions, but the path to a lasting peace remains uncertain. Despite the bleak situation, there are glimmers of hope. Rebuilding efforts have begun in some areas, and there is a collective desire for a brighter future. As we move forward, it is crucial to remember the lives lost and the sacrifices made. Moments of silence and memorial services remind us of the human cost of war. The global community must come together to support those affected and work towards a peaceful resolution. Acts of kindness and unity can pave the way for healing and recovery. In the end, it is our shared humanity that will guide us through these dark times and towards a future filled with hope and new beginnings. Now let's shift our focus to the Middle East conflict. The Middle East conflict has also had a profound impact, with billions spent on military operations and millions displaced. International aid has been crucial, but the scale of the crisis requires even more coordinated efforts. The geopolitical landscape in the Middle East is complex, with shifting alliances and new power dynamics emerging. The environmental and economic toll is staggering, with long-term consequences that will affect the region for decades. Global leaders are actively engaged in seeking a resolution, but the path to peace is fraught with challenges and uncertainties. Despite the challenges, there are efforts to rebuild and provide humanitarian aid, offering a glimmer of hope for the future. Just like in Ukraine, it is our shared humanity that will guide us through these dark times and towards a future filled with hope and new beginnings. On the other side, we have the escalating Middle East conflict. This region has been a hotspot for decades, with tensions simmering just below the surface. However, recent events have brought these conflicts to a boiling point. The fighting, primarily between Israel and groups like Hamas and Hezbollah, has intensified since 2023. These groups have a long history of animosity, and recent provocations have only fueled the fire. The clashes have become more frequent and more violent, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. Iran, Syria, and other regional powers are getting involved, each with their own agendas and interests. Iran, in particular, has been a significant player, providing support to groups like Hezbollah and Hamas. Syria, still reeling from its own civil war, has also been drawn into the fray, further complicating the situation. While Russia, already embroiled in Ukraine, is also supplying military aid to Iran. This involvement has added another layer of complexity to the conflict, as global powers vie for influence in the region. Russia's support for Iran has emboldened the latter, leading to more aggressive actions on the ground. The cost of this war has skyrocketed, with over $100 billion spent on military operations and humanitarian efforts. This staggering amount reflects the scale and intensity of the conflict, as well as the international community's attempts to mitigate the suffering of those caught in the crossfire. The human toll? Nearly 200,000 people have been killed, a tragic reminder of the devastating impact of war. These numbers include not only combatants but also countless innocent civilians who have been caught in the crossfire, and over 10 million people have been displaced from their homes. These displaced individuals face a harsh reality, living in overcrowded refugee camps with limited access to basic necessities. The humanitarian crisis is immense, with aid organizations struggling to provide adequate support. Cities like Gaza and parts of Lebanon lie in ruins, their infrastructure decimated by relentless bombings and shelling. The destruction is so extensive that it will take years, if not decades, to rebuild. The psychological scars on the population are equally profound, as they grapple with the loss of their homes and loved ones. And tensions show no sign of easing. Despite numerous attempts at ceasefires and peace talks, the underlying issues remain unresolved. The cycle of violence continues, with each side unwilling to back down. The Middle East is a powder keg, a volatile region where any spark can ignite a larger conflagration. The international community watches with bated breath, aware that the consequences of this conflict could ripple far beyond the region, and every strike risks pulling in more countries into this quagmire. The involvement of global powers like the United States, Russia, and others adds a dangerous dimension to the conflict, raising the stakes and making the prospect of a broader war ever more real. The world can only hope for a resolution that brings lasting peace to this troubled region. To better understand the scope of the conflict, let's look at this map highlighting the key conflict zones. As you can see, the areas of intense fighting are widespread, affecting multiple countries and regions. This graph illustrates the dramatic increase in military spending in the Middle East over the past decade. The surge in expenditure underscores the escalating nature of the conflict and the significant resources being allocated to warfare. Here we have a data visualization that breaks down the casualty numbers and displacement statistics. The human cost is staggering, with nearly 200,000 lives lost and over 10 million people displaced. Finally, this timeline provides an overview of the key events that have shaped the current situation. From the initial skirmishes to the major escalations, understanding these events is crucial to grasping the complexity of the conflict. So, where does this leave us? Could these two wars spark something larger? The alliances forming, Russia with Iran, the US and NATO backing Ukraine, Israel supported by Western powers, are reminiscent of the conditions that led to World War II. Some analysts fear that we are inching closer to a global conflict, a World War III, where regional wars ignite a chain reaction among superpowers. According to recent data, military spending by major powers has surged dramatically. The number of military alliances has also increased, indicating a heightened state of global tension. Experts suggest that these developments could be a precursor to a larger, more devastating conflict. The correlation between regional conflicts and global economic instability is another factor that cannot be ignored. If these wars continue unchecked and if more nations get directly involved, the risk of global escalation becomes very real. Narrator. Military spending has surged globally, indicating a shift towards preparedness for potential conflicts. Narrator. While the world's focus remains on diplomacy, the frequency of military engagements is rising. Narrator. Both the Russia-Ukraine and Middle East conflicts are far from resolution. and the international community must tread carefully to avoid further escalation. These wars are a tragic reminder of the cost of conflict. Lives lost, economies crippled, and societies torn apart. The devastation is not just physical but emotional, leaving scars that last generations. Will diplomacy prevail? Or are we heading towards something much darker, a new world war? The stakes have never been higher, and the consequences could be catastrophic. The world watches with bated breath, hoping for peace but preparing for the worst. We'll keep you updated on these critical issues, bringing you the latest developments from the front lines and diplomatic tables. Our team of dedicated journalists is committed to providing you with accurate and timely information. So make sure to like this video, as your support helps us continue our work. Every like and share amplifies our message, spreading awareness about these crucial topics. Drop a comment with your thoughts, as we value your opinions and insights. Engaging in meaningful discussions can lead to greater understanding and solutions, and subscribe to the channel for more detailed coverage on global conflicts. Stay informed, stay engaged, and together, we can make a difference in the world. Despite the darkness, there is always hope. Communities can rebuild and peace can be achieved through collective effort and understanding. Let us strive for a future where diplomacy triumphs over conflict. Remember, every action counts. Stay hopeful, stay informed, and let's work together for a better tomorrow. Thank you for watching.